All right, good evening, everyone. It is now time to call our regularly scheduled April 10th board meeting to order. Glad to see everyone. Thanks to Delhara for filling in for me last month. I'm sure that everyone had an enjoyable change of pace. So thanks for doing that.
I said, don't make it a habit.
All right. First of all, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda that we have set before us. Second.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded that we will approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. That will bring us to public comment. So we do have a member of the public present today. Hi, Sophie, glad to see you. And we have 3 minutes available for you to address the board. So take the floor, let us know who you are, please some of us know you, and then proceed with your comment.
Are there separate public comments or just one?
We have 2 public comment opportunities, one at the beginning of the meeting, and we have one at the end as well.
And is it allowed to comment at both opportunities?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Dr. Sophie. Nice to meet all of you. And first of all, thank you for everything that you've done for Farmington Hills and for the library. Your work means a lot to the people who live there. I want to ask you, do you know who are the Palestinian people? Palestinian people are people who have lived in Palestine for thousands of years. If you do a DNA test on Palestinian people, you will see that they are Canaanites. So they have been there forever. This is their homeland. And Israel, there is no such thing as an Israeli ethnicity. So Israel was an invasion of Britain in 1948. And you know that Britain colonized India, tried to colonize China, colonized a lot of Africa, they colonized the Middle East. They cut up the Middle East into different territories. And so one of those that they created was Israel. So it was a military invasion. And this invasion continues to today because the Palestinian people will not give up. They will not leave their land, the land that their grandfathers and their fathers, and that they want to leave to their children. And any of us would do the same. We would never leave our land if somebody came to us, put a gun to our head and said, get out, I'm taking this house. And that's what they're living with. They are literally have guns put to their head and they're ordered to leave their houses. And in Gaza, as you know, they are being bombed. It's a genocide. And we know it's a genocide by the United Nations, the International Criminal Court, the International Court of Justice, Amnesty International, Doctors Without Borders. So many independent groups have verified that over 200,000 people have been murdered in a little less than a year and a half. And so this is completely a genocide. And the reason that it's important to bring this up here is that there are a lot of Palestinians living in Farmington Hills. There are a lot of Syrians and Lebanese. Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, Palestine, all are being bombed by the belligerent regime of Israel. And so there are people here who are mourning, watching our friends, our grandfathers, our cousins, our aunts being murdered. Over 20,000 children have been murdered in Gaza. That's almost the same amount of children that are in Farmington Hills. Imagine waking up tomorrow and all the children have been murdered. We can't possibly imagine what that feels like. And yet, in December of 2024, the library held an event to celebrate Israel, just as Israel was committing genocide. And so what we've been asking is to allow Dr. Ismail Noor, who was a survivor of the 1969 Nakba, that a gun was put to his head and the other people in his village, that they need to get out or they will be murdered. So he was driven from his village at gunpoint. So we would like to allow him to give a lecture and teach the public here about the Nakba and about what Palestinians go through. So we just keep asking to please just allow him to give a lecture. I mean, if there was a celebration for a genocidal maniac regime, we need to also give the same kind of consideration to people who are the victims of this genocide. So thank you, please.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. All right, that will bring us to the minutes. I believe that Crystal distributed a copy of the minutes from our March meeting previously. With that being said, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the March minutes.
I move that we approve the March minutes.
Second.
Properly seconded that we approve the March minutes. Any discussion? One item I noticed is just a misspelling of Sharon's name under approval of minutes of the neighbor, but. I see it, yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay, sorry.
Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. That will bring us to the treasurer's report. So Kathy, I will turn it over to you.
I move the board approve the March 2025 operating bills totaling $466,092.62.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and probably seconded by Mr. Steve, Dr. Steve, that we would approve the March operating bills. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all of those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
I move to receive and file the March 2025 financial reports.
Second.
Seconded that we receive the March financial reports. Any discussion?
I have a question again. Recently, they removed some money from class, then we make some, measure one account or the other. And how does that show up in the? Didn't we move some money to the general? It seemed to me, like Kelly mentioned something, move something to, on the. For, moved it to the general spending from another account.
I didn't move anything from the Michigan class.
So nothing's moved from the Michigan class.
No.
to-
I moved to the Michigan class.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking about it. Where does that show up in the balance sheets where there's a big movement like
Well,
that?
it shows up on the new class.
Under the fence.
Somewhere there's.
Like page 15.
Well, not the last page, because that's the yield.
I don't know that the bank statements are included.
No, they aren't. It just shows the contribution, so in the millage contribution, there was $616,000 in March. And I believe that's-
Yeah, I think it came from Comerica. If you look at the page that's labeled capital
Well, it
reserve.
did, but
fund,
I'm trying to remember what it came from to Comerica. It was a payment or something.
I think
That
probably
was
the
the,
tax.
looking at this, just that property, that's the.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
On this page, the capital reserve fund, I think is a good place to see it, Sharon, because it shows you kind of the money coming out of America, and then you have to show the input of that same amount into the Michigan class.
Tracking.
Can't see the numbers, and it's so small. I was like, I don't think it's these are numbers, but yes, on page 11.
That is much.
Yeah. Good question, though. And I would also say, Sharon, the finance committee has those statements too. So if you ever want to look at the statements, Kathy can share those with you too. Any other questions or discussion around the financial reports? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
So for Michigan class updates, in March, our earned income was $45,133.42. Our year-to-date earned income was $127,288.29, and our Month-end balance was $12,300,435.04. On March first, our daily yield was 4.4608%, and on March 31st, it was 4.4034%. What it's gonna look like in April. All remains to be seen.
With that being said, though, I will say, I know maybe a year or 2 years ago, probably before we went to class, there was some conversation around participating in the market potentially. I think treasurer and the finance committee made a good decision not to do that. And keeping us in some stable instruments, I think has been most prudent considering the plans we've got on the books with the insurance committee, right? So that we can do that with as little impact to the taxpayer as possible. Thank you. Yeah, they much appreciate it. Do we have an update from the Friends today?
Stacy could not be here today. The only update, I asked her if she had anything. She said, no, I know they will be doing a solicitation. They're working on that right now. Probably will, it's supposed to be, it's a postcard this time, and it's gonna go citywide, I believe. And then, it needs to get out soon because that's what gets the invites to the gala. So they're working on that, so.
Okay, excellent. I think the only message I would ask you to bring to Stacy is around, I know the Friends Board has some resources they want to put towards the master plan activities, right? I want us to maybe think about that in the context of matching opportunities, right? Because if there are any matching opportunities out there and they have ability to do that, that could extend their reach. So that is something I want us to explore maybe between her and our staff.
I do want to remind you all though too that their book sales coming up. Like April 25th and 27th. And then the odds and ends auction, art auction, we are collecting art left and right now. If you could call it that. My office is gonna be haunted. Right. So the art auction is April 25th, correct? Yeah, Friday.
And that's a boot sale also.
Yes, the book sale during the day and then after hours is the art auction.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Kelly, I'll let you keep the floor.
Okay.
Move to the director's report.
Yeah, so I just know, you just never know what's gonna happen at the library. So I had to put in here the little segment about Brandstar Media. Oh. Yeah, so, Jill, do you wanna, so Jill and Lisa, Liz Van Stone, she's the children's library, you know. Megan is the head of patron services, and, Megan got the phone call. I think the person just called the general number, got the phone call. And Megan agreed to an interview or something and then sent me an invite. And I'm like, what is this invite for it? And then I read her email. She's like, oh, I guess I should have asked more questions before I agreed to the interview, because if they want to interview somebody about being on a TV show about, you know, women being who do it all or something, and they thought the library would be a good spot. I'm like, oh, no, that is not me, and I do not want to be this. So I knew Jill would, and then she got Lisa Leshman Stone involved in it because, you know, they like, do you want to just discuss what the call was about and the surprise ending, so to speak?
Oh, yeah, so Brandstar, it was a producer for Brandstar Media, and I don't know, sometimes you see those commercials, they do commercials. And also do some production work for you know, like making entertainment shows that they then sounds like they option out to different places like Lifetime. So it was a producer who wanted to do like a, you know, kind of like a feeler call and see if we were interested. And then if we were, then we could work with their production team. But basically it was this interview thing type show, which was headed by Montel Williams, which I used to love Montel Williams shows. So I was kind of bummed that it didn't work out. But anyway, she found out about our library. She was interested in all the things that we're doing to promote DEIA and reaching out to different, communities within our service community and all the things we're doing. And it was because the board had signed on to the DEIA statement. I can't remember what the actual name is. So it sounds like she was kind of going through the list of the libraries, contacting people. So the pitch was pretty interesting, and she was like, basically they would come out and do a segment about the library and all that we offer, and then this would show on Lifetime in local markets and beyond, and the spot would be like 5 minutes. Which all sounded great until we found out the kicker was that we needed to invest in this. I would say, it was gonna cost us $19,000. And I said, well, we have to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money, and I don't.
in the couches, but.
Well, and so she's like, well, sometimes people get, sponsors and donors, and do you have a sponsorship thing? And I was like, well, I don't know if a Friends of the Library would be interested. And she's like, well, okay, but sounds like you're doing incredible things. So if you change your mind, come and reach out to us. So.
When you have $19,000.
Yeah. Exactly. And I was like, $19,000 for 5 minutes. And she's like, well, you would own the licensing and you could do all this stuff. And it's like, I'm not looking for people throughout the United States watching its Lifetime to come use our library. It's not the thing. It was interesting,
Yeah. But in the reality, it was the sales pitch.
Yes.
So,
Anyway, I just thought we'd share that with you. That's pretty funny. So the elevator request for proposal is out on BidNet right now. They have until April 30th to submit, and walkthroughs are required in order to bid. So Peter is handling that. Middle school mock interviews, they do this every year. The staff always loves to be the interviewers. Have you done it before? Yeah. The responses that you get from Yep, from the interview questions are fascinating. What is it, 8th grade?
yes.
Yes, it's for 8th grade, so staff do like to participate in that. Just a reminder that the budget hearing is next month at the same time as the meeting, so you'll do the budget meeting for like the first 10-15 minutes. And you'll close out of that and go into the actual meeting. And the stuff will be made available to the public by May 2nd for them to peruse on the website and in person. We are putting the finishing touches on a survey that will go out to staff, requesting their feedback on job satisfaction and organizational communication. Personnel committee met on Monday, and I shared the survey with them for their input. May 3rd is our Asian American Biolunar Heritage Celebration. We will once again have the very popular sake tasting. So, okay, I think there's more on there, but I don't have.
National Library.
National Library. So those tote bags have been extremely popular. They're just about gone. We had to, we did the first wave and then we did 100 more because they were taken. And so, what's down there now is what's gonna be down there. Yeah, and I haven't seen the hearts, but people love to fill out those little hearts. And the stickers, if you have not seen them, are adorable. Sona does such a great job. And did you see her video on social media? Oh, she was just great. So yeah, Haley does a great job with those videos. And Miss Maria's video on story time. So there's a few more people that are going to be highlighted, I think, that are coming through. So
That's that big one, and then there's like a montage.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and the
And the videos on YouTube?
Yeah.
they're on Instagram
Instagram, I saw.
and Facebook. Yeah.
See if we can get them on the YouTube channel
Oh, okay.
at some point.
All right. And then, if you saw the newsletter that just came out, that is the new Patron Point newsletter that was used, Sharon was highlighted in that one. And, it's very clean looking, so,
You
yeah.
You tidied up.
So, and then just a few things, We did our second supervisors training this afternoon from 10 to 3, so it's been a little bit of a long day. This time around, it was about coaching and redirecting staff and based on the book of the very short book, the 1 Minute Manager, have you ever read it? Yeah, and so those principles of that, so it's very interesting. I think that supervisors got a lot from it and have tools to use as they work with staff. Okay. So, Sherry sent an email out to all staff about grants and other good things that she's been working on. For grants, we were awarded $900 from the Michigan Arts and Humanities Touring Grant for the program Compañeros de Flamenco, which is scheduled for Sunday, May 4th. This project is funded part by Michigan Humanities, an affiliate of the National Endowment for the Humanities. So that is still, we just verified with them that money is still there and we will still be getting it. Just never know with all the grant funding that's coming and going. For summer reading sponsorships, she's secured $7,250 from 4 local sponsors. T-Fiber Mobile, The Road Less Traveled, LSC Credit Union, and Corwell Health. And 30 local businesses have committed to in-kind support. So she's doing really well. She writes that for SEO continues working with our growing list of partners to provide informational and networking opportunities for small businesses and nonprofits in the community. And then on April 3rd, they had 30 chamber members gathered at 8 a.m. to network and enjoy refreshments. Crystal Peterson was there, Maria was there, Haley was there, Peter and myself were there, plus Sharon and Delphara. State of the City's Business Expo, she talks about 250 community members stopped by the library table. And when we went for that, everybody had a library bag. I mean, you could just see them walking around the hall because all you saw were library bags. And then her small business lunch series, over 337 attendees participated in the 6-part business program, February 18th. The sessions included business startup, free businesses, small business owners panel, networking, financing, and marketing. And then we had an evening with Cheryl Head and Stephen Mac Jones on March 25th, and 85 people enjoyed hearing about their latest books and methods for writing stories. So that's her update for that. I sent you the heat map. Just for the ins and outs, I added, last time I just gave you the ins, this time I gave you the outs so that you can see when people were, if they were staying the whole time or if they were just, coming in. I have a smaller version and my glasses on, so I'm not gonna be able to read anything right now. No, that's fine. Again, the one thing to point out is that this Sunday at 1 p.m., there's a couple reasons, like, are they lined up at the door at 1 p.m.? I don't know. It's hard to tell, right? I don't see a lot of people leaving at 2 p.m., so, but it could also be because if we have a program on Sunday, the program starts at 2 p.m. So are they coming in because it's a 1 to 2? Are they lined up at 1? Or are they coming in at 1 but streaming in at 1:30 because the program's at 2? So it's hard to gauge that. But anyway, I just find it interesting. But the other thing that I gave you was just the visitors. This little handout. This is actually, the top one is an actual comparison between the 2 years of 2022 and 2023 and 2023 and 2024. The bottom lines are Farmington, the top lines are Farmington Hills. And I just, as we were talking earlier, just how consistent Farmington is. I mean, seriously, I think you should have one.
I do.
Oh, it's just okay. Yeah, they're just like extremely consistent. They go up in the summer reading. May or actually June, July, and then it kind of evens out. Farmington Hills is just a little bit unexplainable. I'm not really sure what that means. So yeah.
I'm telling you, I attribute it to some of the cohesiveness just of downtown Farmington, the DDA, the whole scenario there is it's a little bit different, and maybe it's what's going on with the people that work at Farmington, I don't know. I don't know, but it could be a testament to something that they're doing. I think organizationally, right, it'd be very interesting, Kelly, for you guys to dig into that a little bit and see if there's something there. I don't know.
It's sort of is. Yeah, the one major difference is the fall of,
And then 2022, 23, right? I mean, where the green dips down
yeah,
in the same period. type
where the
of thing?
orange, where, where
Yeah.
the orange touches it. And now you have 20, so is that truly 22, 23, even though you have
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
January?
yeah.
Okay. Okay, I was just gonna, my first thought is Lions did better this month.
Well, there
And
you go.
people are not coming to
Well,
Farmington.
That's true, right?
Sorry.
You know, it's in a neighborhood, like, people can walk there,
Yeah.
right? It's not as easily to walk to here.
Yeah.
So I think that makes a difference. I think the downtown, you know, like being right in the center of downtown helps.
Farmington Hills is trying to find out where downtown is.
Right,
Yeah.
right, exactly. The bottom one is just that the 2023, 24, and it's always interesting because, basically 30%, roughly 30% of the budget comes from Farmington. 70% of the budget comes from Farmington Hills. And when you look at services, like Farmington visitors are 34%, Farmington Hills are 66%. So it always, and when you spend money for collections, it's 70-30 because it always works out because that's what you can fit in the Farmington location is 30%. Yeah, it's just interesting how that works out.
Okay, so I just realized we're only talking about, because I come, like when I walk into this building, I'm measured as Farmington Hills. Right? I mean, we have no way of knowing. We're just saying.
We're
yeah, yeah,
building
yeah,
wise,
yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
resident.
This is
Yeah,
just
yeah,
building.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. This is just building.
So everything Maria's saying about Farmington is true, but yeah, it's also interesting, like do Farmington Hills people go downtown at all?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and I know they do,
If
yeah,
live at the other end,
right,
they live like at 9 Mile and stuff,
Right, sure.
they're probably going to.
yeah, so that makes it even, it's not. In other words, in my mind, it's not the behavior of the two cities, it's, yeah, we're looking at buildings and so it is interesting how, yeah, downtown building. It looks the same.
Well, I know we had that wonderful presentation from the DDA and extended discussions about our relationship with tax capture. And I think a possible attribution to some of the consistencies in the large month in the summertime is due in part to the traffic that the DDA and the greater downtown events are generating that the library benefits from. As a proud resident of the city of Farmington, I can tell you that the city is beautiful in the summertime, particularly with the farmer's market. And although the farmer's market is nice in the fall, when it's cold, when it's warm and bright and vibrant, all of the events, I think, help to contribute to traffic to the downtown.
I got this data. The first thing I kind of went to was just looking at the bottom line, what a total traffic been overall. And I was glad to see that, from that 2022 baseline, if you look at Farmington, in 23, we saw a 21% increase. In 24, we saw a 23% increase. You look at Farmington Hills from 22 to 23, we saw a 17% increase. And then we saw another 4% increase in 24 for this location. So kudos to the staff and all of the efforts to just increase the usage of our system, which increases its relevance to the patrons. Good job. I do think we've got some thinking to do about this particular location, and especially with all the things that we're doing, over the next few years, we're right on time to kind of inspect some of that and see if there are things we can do to drive more traffic to this location. Because it does look like Farmington is just as desirable, if not more, for some patrons, right? So.
We initially did this to determine whether we needed to keep the library open for longer hours during finals. I mean, it doesn't appear so.
It doesn't appear so, does it? That is not what, it does not, no.
did ask the question though, when I saw the data, should we be opening earlier on Sundays? And I think some of you had that same thought.
And I think that's something that you need to, like,
Yeah,
to dwell into as you as we go along. But it is, you know, maybe it's, you know, we have the heat count, but like, again, it's between the 1 and 2 hours. So maybe is it you have someone stand at the door at 1 o'clock and see how many come in right in between the first 15 minutes or something, you know, I don't know.
take some real live.
Yeah, real live
sample.
count, yeah.
Because these counters can be a little,
Right,
yeah, I've dealt with them in the retail environment and they're an indicator, but they aren't.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I'd be curious how it varies beyond, like seasonally as well, of if this is happening all year round, or is this more in the
Right.
colder months or warmer months, or is it just school year?
Okay, one other thing I have for you. So, you know, we have, well, Sarah McCarthy and Rebecca Brown, presented at the last, board meeting. And so Sarah came on board in November. So her and Rebecca are like examining services and stuff, you know, Sarah's new, she comes in with new ideas and that kind of stuff. So they did this, as they're evaluating services, they did this, strategic plan for the teen department based on this strategic plan that we have, like to create community, expand connections and cultivate curiosity. So I'm going to share it with you. It's very small print and, just, you can read it as you go along, but you know, we talked about, you know, every department needs to do something like this because I think it would help staff understand their role and how they contribute to the success of the library based on our strategic plan. So we'll be working on
Of that.
So I just wanted to mention, as part of National Library Week, Tuesday was Library Workers' Day. And so I brought donuts to both branches on behalf of the board.
Thank you. And they were gone.
You know, in the last couple of years, I normally sent some type of food on behalf of the board and I didn't this year, so I'm glad you did. Thank you.
And Wednesday, was it Wednesday? Jam Pro, courtesy of Jam Pro, they brought in donuts and coffee for staff. From Tim Hortons, and you know, the minute I put that email out, I was coming out of the lounge, I put the email out, went in the lounge, came back out, and this, because you can look down. This line of staff is coming up the stairs.
Along with National Library Week celebration, I do want to acknowledge that the city of Farmington did issue a proclamation celebrating National Library Week on
Oh, I have it.
Monday night. And so any one of us who's available and might want to visit their next council meeting to extend thanks, I think that would be appreciated. And also the Farmington Hills Council will extend one on next Monday. So anyone who'd like to attend that meeting to present or to receive from Mayor Rich and the council, she's already text saying who's coming from the library. So she definitely wants someone to be there. So next week at Farmington.
Oh,
Hills.
okay.
When is the date?
Monday.
Yeah. All right.
Oh,
Anything
no,
else?
I think I'm good unless you have questions for me. Oh, wait, I am on vacation. April 25th through May 4th, I'll be.
Not St. John's in Michigan.
No, not St. John's, Michigan.
Report. So on Sunday, April 6th, we held the Arabic calligraphy workshop here at the library. And this was a 2-hour hands-on workshop that was led by Dr. Nihad Duhan, if I'm saying his name right, who is a certified master of Arabic and Islamic calligraphy and a professor of mechanical engineering. And it was very well received by the community. We had a turnout of 24 people. It was a limited size just because of the nature of it and being hands-on and that sort of thing. But I just wanted to mention that we had that program.
Thank you. I had asked about that earlier and I didn't know we had a waiting list for that program. So I was glad to see the interest there. All right, any questions for Kelly? Okay, thank you very much. That will take us to unfinished business, and unfinished business, we have the beloved tax capture agreements that we have been mulling over for several years, it feels like, for several months.
So correct.
And I think we have copies of two agreements, one for the DDA, the Farmington Downtown Development Authority, and then one also for the Grand River Corridor Improvement Authority. These have been reviewed by our legal counsel and also by our de facto board counsel. And I believe that they are in good shape. So with that, I think we would entertain a motion to approve these. We've seen them a few times now, and I don't think we've had any material changes since the last time we saw them. Do you have them?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And I assume you want to do them separate, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I move that we approve the tax capture for the agreement with the DDA.
Okay, moved and properly seconded that we would approve the tax capture for the Farmington Downtown Development Authority. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none.
I'm sorry, can you just explain the paragraph? What does that language mean? There were agreement to share, like, you know, how do we determine an amount? The amount of library millage. Because it's the same language basically in both agreements, but I didn't really know how to translate that. The amount of library millage that the library is sharing will be equal to the amount that the DDA would have received from the library millage if the DDA was capturing tax increments.
I think that just means all of it.
Yeah, remember how we were having that conversation around whether or not we wanted to limit the amount that they could capture?
Yeah.
And so this group, I think, decided that we wanted them to be able to leverage
This
the
is the
full
way-
amount,
okay,
and
okay.
that was the legal
Okay.
way to say that, I suppose.
And it's for 2 years. Now, the second year, if you decide you don't want them to get the same amount, you can say that in another agreement.
Okay.
And that review piece was the key piece that Sharon was kind of advocating for, to make sure we had an opportunity to come back and review. Like if for some reason the DDA falls apart, or if there's something that goes wrong, we can come back and make a different decision.
Okay.
Good question. Any other thoughts, discussion?
I do appreciate item 2 here, just for our own understanding. DDA shall provide library description of the intended uses of the amount of shared capital.
And I think we had a good start on that with the DDA visiting us this year. And we'll keep that on the books, because that was very good. Any other thoughts? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Now we will entertain a motion for the Grand River Corridor Improvement Authority Agreement.
I move that we approve the agreement with the Grand River Corridor Improvement Authority.
And I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded that we would approve the agreement with the Grand River Corridor Improvement Authority. Any discussion? I'll just say, Kathy, thank you for attending the Grand River Corridor meeting held recently, and we are kind of getting a little bit more engaged there. And we'll look forward to kind of a similar output from that side, similar to what we've got from DDA.
I was the Grand River Corridor Improvement Authority. I think I would have chosen something other than CIA.
Yeah.
It must have a meaning, does it? Corridor Improvement Association. Authority. It's just funny.
All right, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. All right, thank you very much. I think that concludes unfinished business. And I'm sure that the respective authorities will be happy to know that we're still playing ball. You guys are tough cookies with them this year. All right, that brings us to subcommittee updates. And so first up, we have the Finance Committee. Kathy, is there any update from the Finance Committee?
No, there's not, but we do need to have a meeting to discuss some. Up to you two, after.
Yeah, I would agree. Appreciate you saying that because as I'm looking at some of the outputs from the Facilities Committee, I want to make sure that the Finance Committee is dovetailed with those plans. So, yes, so thank
We
you.
were hoping that you guys wouldn't make me do that.
Yeah, we're gonna let you do whatever you want to do. No, we're gonna have a meeting and put down the law. All right, that will bring us to the Facilities Committee. So Sharon, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, first Jillian sent you all her minutes from the last meeting because we talked about a lot of different things and I thought people would be interested in seeing more detail. So there's basically two aspects of it. And one is the contract and the second aspect of it is Sarah's input first. And she just sent, there's some people get an email from her kind of answers to some of the questions she suggested. So I'll do that second. What Steve did is he did a 3-page little work plan where this was like his contract. And it was really straightforward, real simple, proposed scope of work. And I'll just review the terms that we've agreed to on that. And they are that for the main branch, the new children area toilets, and demolition of the existing toilet rooms, and a new reference desk. Number 2 is the new main level toilet rooms and renovation of affected adjacent areas. 3 is the new study rooms down the corner. 4 is the outdoor study patio, which has a lot of enthusiasm, by the way. And the 5th is resurfacing and reconfiguration of the west parking. And that was an optional item that everybody's reading that is important to do now. So that is added to the main branch that we discussed before. The downtown branch, 1, renovate the toilet rooms, both floors. 2, new outdoor amphitheater at State and Liberty Street. And 3, new children's outdoor program at the lower level. So with these two, if you add together the prices that he showed us that are earlier and add in approximately a 10% architect fee, you're at 3 million cheap. So when I looked at this, it's a kind of a casual document and a couple of statements were real clear to me. And I said, well, where's the paragraph that says, what if the construction stops? Or what if you have a problem? Where is the language that says, if we have issues and the contractor is not working out, where are the kind of clauses that you would normally see in a contract? And Steve says, oh, we have other contracts. And this was a very user-friendly kind of paper, like a memo almost. I have utmost faith in Steve, but he said, I can get you another one. So what you see is the contract that we sent to review to Kelly. And that contract repeats the pricing in the first one, but adds in other parts of the agreement. And you'll see limitation of liability, ownership. You're familiar with whether you buy a house, you have different clauses in it. And in spite of that, I do have a couple issues. So the question is, before I get to that, is do we want to go back to him and say, Steve, yes, use this more, maybe even more complex. I use this more formal contract that has all the different provisions in it that we would expect, and just adapt a couple things here and make it fit here. Or do he signed this? He gave this to us as a contract. You know this, but I'm just not real comfortable for two things. Is one, I think you should address the issue of problems with termination or long term. What if the economy turns against us? What if you saw what happened in the last 2 or 3 days? What happened? We're not in the market, but other things could happen. What if we do have to stop the project? What will our liabilities be to the architect or to the construction people? And we may not have a good answer for that, but we should understand that that is a risk that you take when you do the contract. So my suggestion is to ask Steve to go back and look at this. And I would have, this is too big a project, not to have legal counsel for the library to take a look at the contract and say, here's your limitations, here's the problems. These are standard, but I just want you to recognize what the contract makes you do. And if you're buying a house or you're, buying a new business, you would have your own counsel take a look at it, and they may not change anything, but they say, here are the provisions that could get you in a costly situation. And I don't think it's the project 7 to 8 months, you said, before you actually see any construction. So I think approving the project and the values that you said, approving that, but asking him to put it in this contract instead and have our own library legal counsel look it over. And it's not that complex. They're not going to take a month to do it. And I think waiting 2 weeks to me is really a good idea, and have them do that. So I just want to throw those things out. And you have this one. And I did want to say, besides the fees, the 3.2 million that you're familiar with, besides that, there also are expenses for, let's see, it's easier on this one. There's additional expenses for, you have to pay for Xeroxes and stuff like that, reproduction costs, postage and handling, which is fine. It says plus a 15% of their costs. So one of my questions to him is, why are we paying him 15% more if they're Xeroxing? And we're paying someone to do the work already. I think that paying for reproduction costs and postage and handling, it shouldn't be part of it. But that is just a little other thing in there. And there is a compensation clause if they're doing things that are additional services. The firm principal is $225 an hour, like in the other one. The architect, $195, if it's something over and above the contract. The designers are $175, architecture engineering is $155, civil is $175. So there are, some, we talked 3 million too, but in my head, I see that things may come up. For example, if you're going to pay a counsel to look it over, that's another couple $100. So something else may come up, and that it's another $2,000. So you have to keep in mind that, I think, and there is a clause in there about inflation. So if any inflation clause should be looked at very closely, because we don't want it to grow to 4 million flies. I know we didn't want to. So those are my comments on the contract, and I'd like to know everybody's feelings about it.
My thoughts, Sharon, would be that I, number one, agree with all of the things you've highlighted as risks. I do think I prefer the more robust contract for the scope of work we're talking about. And I think I'd rather have Steve present us, work with you on a document that, number one, incorporates all of the concerns that you and the committee have, then have Mike or somebody at Foster Swift review, and then bring it to the board for approval. So I'm aligned with you. I agree.
And I think sitting down with Steve one-on-one and saying, okay, what's this, what's that, do we have, and then that he's very receptive to doing that.
Yeah, I'll appreciate your thoughts around the exit ramp, right? If we need to exit the construction project at any time. When we were talking about this last year, it probably wasn't as big of a concern, but I do think, cost of materials, anything could happen that could cause us to have to need to reconsider some things. So I'd like for us to flesh out how that would work. We know we'd be on the hook for some things probably when you're in the midst of something, but just understanding what the limitation of our risk would be.
Yeah, but knowing what our risk is, but I'm really convinced that the project, it really makes a lot of sense. And it really is exciting to do. But you're going to start on the right foot, so that if something does go haywire, you can say, well, we did the best we could at the beginning. We didn't say, well, we should have thought about it that. So.
Sharon, assuming that all of those things happen, like it comes to one ball, when do you anticipate that contract will come to us for a vote?
Well, I would want, and he said they have to work on 7 months?
It'll take 7 to 8 months even to get drawings.
So I would think that Steve would be very receptive to, working on it next week and looking at it and then giving it to the company.
Next meeting.
Right. And I would like to see it, I'd like to see it at the May meeting. We could possibly do that.
Hello?
So I'll just have to ask our committee if you want to meet with him or just have a few of us, just to expedite it.
Sharon, I just want to really appreciate you. I would have been useless.
Right.
This is so, your explanation and your thorough attention to these details is so helpful to
I
everybody.
think it's a great project. I really do. That's very exciting too, but you want to start in the right foot.
Yes, absolutely.
You're just a great.
Well, thanks. The second part, some other comments before I go to part two. Okay, part two is, I just forgot her name at the moment. You know, about our communications and our.
Sarah?
Sarah.
Yeah, Sarah, I'm going to call her Lily or something. So Sarah just sent everybody get that for the explanation. And I don't know, Kelly, you'll have to tell me if I personally went through and I went, oh, I would change this, because it is, I'm not quite sure what the publication is going to do, but I would like to just edit it and make some comments and then send it to Sarah. I don't want her to be like, well, here they are, y'all sent me 6 comments, but there's some things that I think would be a good addition or a subtraction from it. Would that be appropriate to do?
Well, I think that's why she sent it.
Okay.
So yes.
And one of my comments is I look at if you have to put in your eyes that you are the person reading it, and it's going to be in the newsletter or it's the patrons are reading
Well,
it.
it's gonna go as a press release.
Okay, so when you first look at the first paragraph, you know, it says about the master plan, it puts in the word about strategic plan. I'm reading this, and remember, people read the first 2 sentences of any article when they're reading a newspaper. So that's your first shot, was first little inverted time. So it says like the master plan, and then it says based on the strategic plan. You shouldn't say that, you say the master plan is to do whatever, but now you've got the people confused. Are they talking about the master plan or the strategic plan? Later on in a couple paragraphs, she explains the strategic plan was the base. But at the beginning, you should just take one clear word, one clear concept. This is, this is a project, but when you read it, I think you'll get the feeling what I'm saying is think of your patron looking and wanting to keep it simple, the first 2 lines. Some people may go to the other parts. But anyway, that was my first impression. She's a very good writer. But and you don't want to use the same adjectives all the time. You know, this is stupendous, this is stupendous, this is stupendous. I forgot what the word she used about it. So anyway, she did a nice presentation, and obviously she has a lot of skill. So, but everybody could use input.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think, I do think, like Kelly said, I think that's why she sent it, so we could give some input to it. I do think it'd be good to coordinate that input so she doesn't get 10 responses from us. So Sharon, I think I'll leave that to you to kind of work with Sarah on that communication.
Well, if you feel it better, if everybody sends their responses to me,
Yeah.
and then I
think
call
that
them.
would be perfect.
Yes, that'd be wonderful if you're willing to do that.
That's good, I'd like to do that.
Do you
I'll
have
take
a
no more
date?
assignments.
Sharon, is there a date that you'd like to send to receive? the
She's
feedback
going on
from us?
vacation, didn't you say?
She's about Friday and Monday, so she'll be
Friday,
back on
Monday.
Tuesday.
So why don't you try to get them back to me? You have all weekend. And that's no time of your own. Well, why don't you try to get back to me by Monday night? Would that be?
Sure.
If somebody feels, it doesn't take long, it's easy to go. Being critical is easy. So, I think that's all I have to say. What Peter's updates were already mentioned by, so.
Up and down on the road.
Oh, the other bullet item.
Oh, not on road. I think that was, I didn't put that on there.
So you told me to put that on there.
Oh, I did.
You did.
Oh, well, let me tell you about the road. I was impressed by Jill's letter about the road and the summary. And I think when you're looking at the library as a whole, people don't understand that we don't have control of the road. So it is a detriment to us. Of the one by the post office,
Oh,
the
both
bumpy, bumpy road.
Okay.
Yeah.
The one that gave me a flat tire.
Yeah, well, and she's bitter. But people don't understand that we have no control. And from your letter, it looked like we're not gonna have much progress. And we know the post office they'll probably fire the postmaster, so we don't get any help from the post office. So I don't really know how we can give a we're doing all this stuff and they'll say, why don't they fix the road? We've given them all this money. So I just throw that out because it's a bad front for the library.
I agree with you, Sharon.
Is it possible to collaborate with the post office and say?
What I was gonna say is, and the last I heard from the city of Farmington Hills about this, Gary, city manager, I think even stated, if I recall correctly, last year, that he would take the federal government to court if he needed to get that fixed. I'll revisit with him about that.
Could you, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't wanna see them, I mean. It should be the city, not the library.
Correct, and almost like, no, I'll give you that for Jill in just a minute, but I think even if they took care of it and then bill the federal government, however that needs to work, I think there are some mechanisms he could probably use. Jill, what were you gonna say?
So when I reached out to, like Orchard Ridge Office Park, whatever. Chuck Howard, who is Senior Vice President, Trans Western Real Estate Service, which handles that building. He explained to me that, a few years ago, there was, and I can't remember when this was, probably 2020 or 2021. MDOT reached out to a lot of the businesses along 12 Mile Road and basically asked them to transfer the rights to the entryway so that they could redo it. And according to Mr. Howard, the business office back there does own that road, but because the post office's post boxes are there, the post office would also have to sign off on any sort of transfer of ownership over to MDOT. And so the office part transferred the ownership, post office did not. And so they said that they even had lawyers contact federal government post office to compel them to sign it off on it. And they said that went nowhere. So that was the last I heard, but then Chuck did shortly after he sent me the information about the post office not signing off on MDOT. He contacted MDOT again about it and said, and this is from his email, it says, jurisdiction is either your city or county, and you'll have to contact those agencies. So the city of Farmington Hills, it sounds like, might have more luck trying to contact the Oakland County Road Commission. And maybe they could reach out to the post office about it. But it just seems like the post office, like I went over there to talk about a different issue, and the first thing they said was, are you here about the road? So, it's like, it's a difficult situation because the post office is like, that's not us. And even if it was, it's the postmaster. And they're like, look, we will patch the road, but in order for us to redo the road, we have to get the post office permission and they won't sign off. So I guess my suggestion, based on the feedback I received from Charles Howard, is to maybe contact the Oakland County Road Commission.
Is it my imagination or were some of those poppy holes filled in recently?
They were,
And
so-
now they're just getting it bad again. So-
Yeah, so the company, the building back there did call them to come out and fill potholes. There was a kind of a wait list during the time of that year because everybody had potholes. And they were like, well, it'll fix it, but it's gonna just be bad in a month again when it snows again. So I may have to contact them again and see if they can send the pothole people out again to repatch.
They need.
That's very helpful, Jill.
Yes, very.
Appreciate that and your summary on the road. I think we'll try to apply pressure. We can apply pressure at the road commission and at the city to kind of coordinate and collaborate maybe on at least getting the federal participation so that we can go on and fix the road. So thank you for the work on that.
I find it, maybe we should also contact our member of
I was
Congress.
gonna say that, like.
That's where I go.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's like a coordinated effort, right?
Yeah.
Let maybe Gary and folks coordinate with road commission, but then let our elected members know, like, hey, we're not really getting a response from the federal government on this particular concern. Here's what needs to be done. So it's kind of packaged for them, but I agree with you. Totally.
That was for that.
So isn't there a, help me Hank, I want.
Well, yeah, maybe that's our fail safe. We'll say, you know, Gary, we're gonna give you a shot on this, see if you can help us. If you can't, then we're gonna go to Help Me Hank.
Brittany, I forwarded you the email from Charles Howard.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Because I think that clarifies a lot, you know, about the ownership, number one, the movements they've made to try to, you know, release the road so that whatever needed to be done can be done. Because at one point in time, I thought the neighbor here was the problem. Maybe, right? I didn't know. But I think what you just laid out clarifies exactly what the problem is. So thank you.
And the road is owned by who?
Well, the neighbor back here, right?
Well, I don't know, well, yes, them, but
The
And-
post office owns where the mailboxes are.
it's post office owner where the mailboxes are. And it sounds like because, but so now I don't know though, because if they transferred the ownership over to MDOT. Does MDOT own it now? But from the email from Chuck, that he forwarded the email from MDOT was like, this isn't our responsibility. You have to contact your road commission. So maybe they still own it.
Well, we'll get, I think, everyone's response to that question maybe first, right? Yeah, hey, road commission, who has responsibility for this road? Hey, city, who, just to see, and then a line there, 'cause if we're not aligned there, we're not going anywhere.
Let's start.
Yeah. Because there may be legal things we need to clarify there, and if that's so, we need to do that right
You
away.
know, the post office may only have an easement,
I think that's what it is.
just like even mailboxes at your house is an easement. They don't own that little place to put them.
Which is why they're like, we have nothing to do with it. Yeah.
When they were building this line, didn't them go to the city to see, or somewhere, to see if we could make that a main entrance down? So I don't.
That's like 1990 something.
I will say though, like if there's any consideration around changing our primary entrance, right? The work we're doing now, this discussion around the parking lot, all of that probably needs to be brought forward sooner than later. So that's something we can think about.
But we wouldn't have a light. now.
Yeah.
Right, there'll probably be the light,
Traffic
Yeah.
there'll probably be the traffic light, the traffic people probably wouldn't go for it.
And I'm embarrassed because I should remember, but I was there, but and Renee, do you remember in 2021 or so, we did vote to give over the easement.
We did for
to
our.
MDOT. Yeah, for our driveway, yeah,
Right. and you redid
but
it.
I know we couldn't do that one, but yeah, that's, so we did.
No,
fix
they
our-
didn't.
Yeah,
No, they didn't redo it. I had to,
Oh, that's
I had Donald redo it
okay,
when they did the parking lot because I don't know what happened. I know that we got the letter from Oakland County and say, we're gonna do it. Do you want to get on board? Blah, blah, blah. It didn't happen then.
okay,
And so then I got really bad. And when we did the parking lot in 2021, 22, I had Donald leave that little space in it.
If you have documentation where, between road commission and the library, right? I'd like to see that.
Yeah, it should.
And probably include that in my communication about it now, because the story starts a little bit earlier, so I want to start at the beginning. Much like, yeah. I know, in your spare time.
I know.
It's not
It's funny the
super
things I
important,
find in my email.
but if you happen to find it, if you can send that to
I
me.
will. Before we move off facilities, can I just be clear on what our next step is for this contract?
I am going, okay, I'm gonna call Steve,
Okay,
because we need to talk to Steve and say, you know, to do some of this. And I would like anybody in the committee to come with me,
okay,
and I will do that next week.
okay.
I
So
mean, this
you're,
week.
you're gonna get clarification at the contract, get everything that you want in
Correct,
there.
and then we're gonna give it to you,
And then you're gonna give it to me to give to the lawyer.
correct.
Okay, got it. Just one.
And hopefully we'll have that all wrapped up and back by
Next meeting for us to vote on.
Yes.
So, and today is Friday, so hopefully we can meet Monday or Tuesday. Want in on that?
and what day, Sharon, yeah, I'd be happy to help, sure.
All right, so,
Kathy, do you want?
all right. Sharon, thank you very much. I echo Chris's sentiment around the work you've done in the committee. I think most of us who were involved in the trustee interviews, knowing your background and some of the things you've done in the past,
Mhm.
we do that you would help us immensely in this area. So thank you. Couldn't do it without you. Or if we did, it probably wouldn't be as good. So
Thanks.
I think that will bring us to the personnel committee. So Dohara, I will turn it over to you.
You. Kelly mentioned we met earlier this week and we got a few things kind of cooking up. No big decisions or motions for today. One of the things that was brought to us by the Working Conditions and Benefits Committee, which is the committee of staff, that when there are changes or anything that they would like to propose, and if there's enough of a consensus there, then they hand it off to the Personnel Committee to consider. One such suggestion made by a member was for the library to offer tuition reimbursement as part of the benefits that employees might receive. And so the WCBC, which is the committee, did some kind of information gathering. And so the personnel committee will talk about that at a future meeting and bring a proposal to the board. Another thing, one thing that we did decide is to forego the director evaluation for this year. So you won't be getting an evaluation for Kelly because we want to focus on another big thing that is happening. And what might that be, Kelly, for those who might not know?
So I'm gonna be retiring. Yes, yeah,
I just
so
got here.
I know.
You just got it.
I have not.
I don't remember you checking in with me. That was inconvenient.
So, yeah, and I let them know in January at, my evaluation that, I was gonna give them, to start the process, give them like a year and stuff, so I'm looking at probably January. I haven't firmly set the date yet, but, I'll let you know by June.
And whatever date she sets, we'll tack 6 months on.
Well, I just want to make sure you're
No.
coming back from St.
Yeah.
John.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, what the personnel committee will be working on is a timeline for what that process will look like. So whether that is for us to have an ad hoc committee that will be part of the director hiring process, or if the personnel committee will take that on, how and when staff input and participation in that process, what that will look like. So we'll detail out all of that from between now and perhaps January as the date is being finalized. So we'll come back next month, I think, with something for you all to look at. Yeah, Chris.
I didn't know, they do this. Does the Michigan Library Association help with, executive searches?
Not in the way that school boards do, but if you're thinking
That's,
about
yeah,
that.
I mean, that was invaluable when we hired a superintendent.
Right. There would be help, but it's not the same, it's not the same.
I just want to comment that you do need a reasonable search firm, whether it's someone that has some background and just shared with Kelly that I was on the quality board downtown for a long time. And we needed a new director because our director wanted to retire. And at different time periods, there's not a lot of people available. It's just the luck of the draw, who's out there that you'd like to get in. We actually went for several months without getting a candidate that we knew we would like. So I just want to offer that it helps to have a search firm bring you, what do you call that? Check the candidates out first, so you're not just interviewing everyone and you have your skill set that you'd like them to have. Because it's not a process that you can turn over. January is not that far away when you're looking for a new person. So it really, you have to do it right away. See who's out there.
Yeah, I agree with you, Sharon, that I do think the board probably needs some help in facilitating and administering this. As it relates to search firms per se, I'll wait for the committee's recommendation on that. I think this particular board has had some experiences with search firms. and kind of the recycling of candidates in that arena
Yes.
that has left a bad taste. And so I think we definitely need support, professional support. I don't know if it's the typical search firms that we would call. It may be more of an HR consultancy type of a situation. But I think I'll wait for the personnel committee to give some recommendation on that because search firms got this organization in some interesting predicaments. So just to put that
Does
out.
Plan Moran do our budget, right? Does Plan Moran? I just mentioned that because Plan Moran is the company I know that does a lot of searches.
And see, and I think that is kind of where, general practitioner versus maybe just the library people would probably be a better move, right? And somebody we've got an established long-term relationship with. So I like that idea more. So Johara, I know you guys will bring us back a recommendation that kind of meets that need to not weigh down staff with this process or the board to give us some professional assistance to narrow it down to the top candidates that then the board committee could probably work through.
Zohara, I have two search firms that I'll send you recommendations
Thanks, Chris.
for to look at.
Great.
In my career in philanthropy, these were basically two firms that we recommended to nonprofit organizations. Never did any municipal hiring, but nonprofit organizations, and they're just outstanding. And they'll do a national search. And this library deserves a national search.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. All right. Beautiful. Anything else from personnel? All right, thank you. Oh, that cat is out of the bag.
Right.
Stop keeping your senses.
It's a hard decision, and I know you went through a lot. Yeah. Congratulations on making it.
That's how I feel about it. And I think, I'm sure we'll do this again later, but, agreeing to take on the challenges that we had at the time that you did, and rebuilding the organization to a degree with our assistance and help, hopefully, has definitely kind of resulted in, this increased interaction with the organization within the community. So,
And a proclamation from.
and even a proclamation. But I mean, I just can't say enough about what you took on at that time. And I appreciate it personally and, as a resident of the community. All right. Okay. With that, we'll move on to new business. And we've got a few policies here that staff and legal counsel have been working on. So Kelly, I'm going to turn the floor to you so that you can talk us through the policy we're reviewing today.
Does everybody? Oh, yeah, okay. So, expected behavior policy, something that we have a new, we call it PITS. It's,
Patron incident.
yeah, that's it, patron incident tracking system. I couldn't think of what that was called. So it was time to revamp some of the policies and whatever. We've always had a behavior policy. So we sent it to the lawyer. Well, we asked for a template from the lawyer. She gave us a template. We made our changes that reflect our values and that kind of stuff and language, and then sent it back to her. She came back with more suggestions and offered, and this is the final thing of that. So all of this has to be entered into the patron incident tracking system so that when you enter something, you're consistent with your policies and stuff like that. So we have the expected behavior policy, which I know is long, but it has to be to cover all the behavior that you see in the public buildings. And along with that expected behavior policy, you have the violations and appeal policy, because this explains what happens if you violate the behavior policy. And then, of course, we have a separate children and vulnerable adults policy, because you have to treat them separately than you do adults, differently. And these were all templates from the attorney in the beginning, and we changed it. And these now have her blessing. So do you have any questions?
I have a comment.
Yes.
Number 9, when it's talking about cell phone use, and that designated area is in the lobby. or the lobby, you can hear whatever anybody's saying all the way into the nonfiction area because of the ceiling. Just projects that sound.
Well, but you have to give them somewhere.
Maybe one of those old English phone boxes.
The language does say may not be conducted over speakerphone and must be done quiet.
Well, I mean, we're talking that, I know, because even at Liberty Street, if you're, yeah, well,
Yeah.
no, the lobby goes all the way to the corner. It's like this, you're on the phone with the cup, with the string attached, but
Could you say outer lobby? Because that's here, because that's between the doors.
right. I mean, I don't know, what do you?
We don't want
I mean, so at the point that it gets where they're disturbing somebody, that's in disturbance. You're disturbing other people. So I mean, either way, that's when you would go up and you would say, excuse me, could you lower your voice? You're just, people can hear you.
Yeah, I think with the noise, so number 8, right above that. Paired with the cell phone use. I think it'll be okay, like if it is overwhelmingly loud because they're in the lobby taking.
I mean, I think it's the lobby because you're not sitting right next to somebody.
And it's an expected common area.
Yeah, there's no,
Well, a lot of people don't realize they don't have to talk loud on the cell phone.
Well,
They
this is true.
talk loud or, even
Right.
almost in a normal voice sometimes. That all carries.
We say designated areas. Do we have, I haven't noticed, do we have any signs that say, use your cell phone in this area? Okay, I mean, after this policy.
So that was gonna be my suggestion, rather than have the place in the policy, especially because there's gonna be redoing in the buildings, couldn't we just say in marked designated areas? And then mark a designated area, like for now, couldn't it be that little like snacky room place?
That was. my
Yeah,
thought.
I mean,
well,
and then you can move your designated area without having to redo your policy. Or, I don't, I'm not trying to tell you how to do your business, Kelly, but I just think. If you make it specific and then the building gets changed and then you gotta redo your policy. If you just say designated area, then you can have like I see in office buildings now, cell phone designated area. Or designated area for whatever it says, but it's like, no, go over there.
But it does say designated area and outside of the library, added in library lobbies.
Okay.
You already have that in.
Yeah,
I just believe there is
I'm asking
sufficient
to cross
language
out Bobby.
that's there. That's, even though it's saying like in this general area, it's not saying in this general area. You can scream at the top of your lungs. It is saying could not be conducted over speakerphone unless be done so quietly as not to disturb other patrons. So therefore, via the interpretation of library staff, okay, if someone is in a designated area, but it is disturbing other patrons, and kindly ask that person to.
The upgrade of the hills, are they going to? I just can't remember, are they going to put a ceiling on the cafe?
I believe that was one of the things, yes.
Cause that would make it a good place then to have a phone call. So you wouldn't be hearing all the noise that you hear now.
The only thing is though, I would say Kathy, it's a group area where multiple people can be at one time. And we do have people who study in there and meet with tutors. And so if you are looking for a private space, there's something I would be interested in seeing in the master plan, and Stephen and I kind of discussed this. Stephen, the architect. Was getting some of those soundproof booths for the library. So even if we did put those in the lobby though, I don't know if we would have, because they're very expensive, like 20,000 piece. We've looked into it. I doubt we would be able to purchase enough to handle all people wanting to be on the cell phone at the same time. So it would be nice to have it for some time, as an option, but I don't know if you're ever gonna get any place that's gonna be completely soundproof for somebody to use a cell phone.
Kelly, just a question for you. it's an awful acronym, the PITS, but I get it.
We didn't call it that. That's what the
The
product.
product,
yeah.
is, right? Do you have a sense that that's a significant concern?
Cell phone use.
Cell phone use, like volume of cell phone.
I don't think so. I think when people get the most irritated is when somebody's sitting right next to them, like at a computer or something. And, or they're on a speakerphone and they're sitting right next to them.
Yeah,
But other than that, I think people have it, I think back in the day, yes.
I mean, I think when cell phone use first came in, it was way more prevalent. I don't know that. Even like. Usually it's just like.
And I have a
I
very
mean,
high
nobody's screaming
tolerance for
at you when you
noise.
tell them that, right?
So if I'm going up to somebody to say something, then I know it's like really bad, because I have a high tolerance, things like that don't bother me, and I just tune it out. But if I'm going up to say something to somebody, then it's annoying, it's a problem, yeah.
And it's, in my experience being on desk, it's usually because other patrons come to us and say, hey, this person's bothering me. And we experience that a lot in the computer lab. Now that is designated a no talking, no cell phone zone, but the computers outside the lab, you can have your cell phone. So if you need to be on the phone with somebody while you're doing something on the computer, that happens a lot. And so that is one area where it's a designated area where they can use their cell phone.
I didn't mean to make a whole conversation
No,
about cell phones.
no, that's
I was
fine.
just
Yeah.
trying to look at the policy
Yeah.
in a way that you wouldn't have to change it again in the future.
Right.
If you change your decision about where you want people on the phone.
Right.
But if this is fine, this is fine with me.
Okay.
I'm wondering though, because you're going to be dividing up the computer lab. Maybe you could put a small room for.
Or they could just use multiple study rooms that we're gonna be putting in.
Oh, and the thing is, the patrons aren't gonna read them, so this is
For staff.
This is for staff.
Yes.
And these kinds of policies just really need to be there to protect staff. I mean, this is to protect our staff. We're not gonna post this anywhere. So,
Well, it will be on our website.
Yeah.
It's a post policy.
yeah, but
People
I'm
need
just
to
like,
know.
patrons aren't.
Yeah,
I wonder what their policy is. Library, let's see how badly I can misbehave.
And am I the only person that reads policies before I go to any public building?
Appreciate, Chris, your comment about we don't need people to know the designated area, like we don't need to read the policy, but it is helpful to have signage. As I was looking at number 10 for food and beverages. About halfway through, it says, at the Farmington Hills location, the designated area is the public lounge. Yeah.
So just.
I know, when I read that, I thought, well, where do you eat in Farmington? You don't. Yeah.
Signs all over.
Table.
Pretty much you did the
Yeah,
tables,
the
right?
tables, yeah.
Guilty.
You know, if somebody's coming in with a pizza, I'm like, well, they need to keep it like right here in this area, so you're not like all over the computer.
But see, again, these are just to protect you if you do have to do something.
Right.
If you're gonna- you have to be believed. I mean, the purpose of these kind of policies, I think, is to protect you. If somebody does get out of hand, right? Like I've seen people in this library just, sitting in a corner with their study books and they got their, their little energy bar. So.
And I think
It's
your
okay,
general.
librarian.
Walk from their waffle iron in the bathroom.
Oh, no, I didn't see that.
Cooking in the bathroom. It's does that. No cooking in the bathroom.
Room use.
So the reason I brought that up is as we are engaging and changing up the space, and I know that's not happening immediately, but are we setting ourselves up by listing at Farmington Hills, this is the designated area? Could we remove that sentence? Or I guess what.
I mean, if we not allow people to eat other places. At tables.
I'm not sure. I'd have to look at the policy, but I think it does say like you can have small snacks and covered beverages
Yeah,
at other
it does.
places.
Yeah.
I mean, but like Chris was saying, it's one of those things like One time I had somebody bring in legit a whole seafood boil in a garbage bag. You know, and we were like, you gotta eat that in the whole lunch. Yeah. A seafood boil. Oh, yeah. What does that smell? It smells good, but also why does it smell in the library? And I'm like, well, something's a seafood boil.
Yeah, so this is just to protect staff. It's not gonna cover every bill that every patron does, our staff.
Good conversation, though. I think to you all's point, these come into play really in the practice of how we approach people about offenses or potential offenses. And I think the training that the staff is doing right around that customer experience is probably gonna be most helpful rather than these policies. But these are the backstop. This is what you got to kind of back yourself up. So totally agree. So with that being said, we've got 3 policies here: the expected behavior policy, the violation and appeal policy, and then the children and the vulnerable adults policy. I think we'll entertain separate motions for each. If there's one on the floor. So let's start with the expected behavior policy.
I move adoption of the expected behavior policy presented to the board today.
Second. Okay,
I'll second.
all right, it's been moved and properly seconded that we would approve the expected behavior policy. Any discussion? Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Then we will move to our children and vulnerable adults policy. I'll entertain a motion for approval of the children and vulnerable adults policy.
I move that the board approve the children and vulnerable adult policy as presented to the board today.
Okay.
Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded that we would approve the children and vulnerable adults policy. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. And then finally, I'll entertain a motion for the violations and appeal policy. Second. Second. Been moved and properly seconded by Chris that we will approve the violations and appeal policy. Any discussion?
Yes, just a question on this one, Kelly, is this meant to apply to a violation and appeal of any library policy or the behavior policy?
And the library.
Okay,
Well,
that's-
behavior policy.
Well, no, so in the purpose paragraph, it does
Yeah.
say any policy because we also have the meeting room policy.
Okay,
the
that's why I
photography,
wanted to
videography,
ask.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, so it's
I'm
the
good.
one,
I'm good. That's why I wanted to ask.
Oh, yeah, it does state it all.
Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries.
One quick question before we move off of here. So one of the things in the bathroom was bathing or shaving or whatever. Do you guys notice any uptick in like unknown people coming in to try to bathe in the library or anything like that? Or was that just put in the policy because it's a good idea, or are there actual
No,
incidents?
that's just in there just in case. We
Okay.
do have unhoused
Right,
people, but they don't use the bathroom in that way.
okay,
we used to have a guy who died in Certain Louis bathroom.
yeah,
all the
you
time.
told us. Yeah.
But he hasn't come in a while.
Okay.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Kelly and Jill. Appreciate the staff's work on the policies. We have to have them. So it's kind of like when I walked in today and I saw the sign that said staff only here, and I was like, what happened?
It's just a precaution.
All right. That will bring us to correspondence. Do we have any official correspondence?
None sent to the email.
Great. All right, that will bring us to our second opportunity for public comment. And I think we do have members of the public that are still with us, so I will turn the floor over to you.
So first, I want to say, as a member of the public, thank you so much to Ms. Seagrass for all your years of service. I will say that when the Israeli celebration happened, a lot of Palestinian members of the public came to meet with Ms. Seegers, and she was very kind and she listened really with an open heart, and we really appreciate that. So it's very sad to see though. So I want to say that this genocide happening in Palestine is a live stream genocide. That makes it different from any other genocide that we've had in history. And that's because of phones. And so all of the lies that the Israeli government gives to justify the genocide are always being exposed. So for example, last week, the Israeli government, the Israeli IDF, murdered 15 ambulance drivers. And they made up the lie that, oh, they thought that these ambulance drivers were a threat because they hadn't signaled that they were driving ambulances. And then one of the ambulance drivers, his corpse had his phone in his pocket. And so someone retrieved that phone and he had been filming what had happened, and every lie was exposed. Ambulances were clearly marked, they had their lights on, they were signaling. And so it was clear, all the propaganda of the Israeli government is being exposed in this live stream genocide. So we know the truth. And one of the greatest assets that we have from these phones is the press. So independent press from the international community, Israel has prohibited them from entering Palestine. And so the press in Gaza, they are the ones who are being targeted. So they are specifically targeted with missiles and bombs. And every week, 13 members of the press are murdered. And so more members of the press have been murdered in Gaza than ever in history. World War II, any conflict ever. This is unacceptable. And it relates to our role here in the library, which is that the purpose of the library is to help record, preserve history and educate the public on this history. And what we see with the Trump administration is that in the National Archives, they are trying to erase history. They are literally at the National Archives removing records of Black history and records of Native American history in the National Archives for the sake of MAGA. And we don't want to follow this kind of whitewashing of history. We hope that in Farmington Hills, especially because we have such a large Palestinian, Syrian, Lebanese, and Yemeni population here, we want the library to reflect what's happening to people historically. And so we want to make sure that the library can teach about the apartheid. Palestine is not just Gaza, it's also the West Bank. And so the apartheid in the West Bank involves Palestinians not being allowed to walk on the same roads as Israelis, not being allowed to take the same buses, not being allowed in the same schools. It reflects very much the same Jim Crow apartheid that we have in the United States. And that's why people like Angela Davis and Tanahan Coates, Black leaders, are so outspoken for Palestine. The library has celebrated, again, Israel, but it hasn't educated the public, and which we know that there are a lot of Palestinian, Lebanese, and Syrian people here. So I'm sure a lot of you have shopped at Haramain. Haramain is a Yemeni-owned establishment. So we know that these populations are vital to our community. And while the library has done a good job reflecting other people, there hasn't been a single event put forth about Palestinians or Syrians or Lebanese or Yemeni. Yeah, there was last weekend for the first time in Arabic calligraphy, but that's actually not a history of Arabs or the Levant. So in Islam, we're not allowed to draw pictures. And so the art of Muslims has been largely calligraphy. And so there are actually more Muslims in China than there are in Saudi Arabia. Arabs are only 15% of the total Muslims. So there are mainly Muslims are in places like like China, Indonesia, Pakistan. So this actually doesn't reflect anything about Palestinian culture. So we really hope that you can bring Dr. Ismail Noor to come give a lecture, and he could make it multimedia. And we hope that you can bring in a documentary about what's happening in Palestine that would really help to reflect what's happening in our own Farmington Hills. So we're really urgently asking you to please reflect what's happening to the people of Farmington Hills. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Right.
I have.
Yes, Maria.
Okay. So I'm going to speak for myself and for the staff. I just cannot. I'm glad that Ernie brought it up. With the second you said to bring in somebody to look, I got very nervous because last time when we got a director, using a company did not bode very well for the staff. Did not bode well for the staff at all. Some of us are not for that. We're just not. You say things and we all get like jittery.
Yeah.
And so, I was glad that you brought up another way or some other people and not just like the normal way. And that, when you do this, I think it'll be really important if you want a cohesive transfer, that, the staff needs to be involved. And really, let me say this, the staff need to be involved if you're going to listen to us. We were not listened to the last time. And so if you don't want our input, then you probably should not ask. But again, it's probably not gonna go well. Because we still have a lot of anxiety.
Yeah,
So I just wanna say that
yeah. No,
on behalf of myself and other staff that were here during that time.
I appreciate that, Maria. Certainly, and we're kind of moving to trustee comment now. That's kind of, yes.
Are we all done with public comment? Is that everything?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did we have any other members of the
I'm
board?
still trying to learn how library works.
Okay. I'm so sorry. But that was definitely kind of what my comment was based in, right? And I think the good news is here at the table, you think about some of the experiences Chris has had, right? Think about the board experience we have now. I'm very interested for Delhara and Chris to talk a little bit about the firms that she's recommending. I think some of what we experienced was based on my observation is kind of the incestuous nature of the library search firm, right? You kind of have one or two firms who are doing that for everybody and recycling candidates. I think getting assistance from somebody who's not as specialized, right? Is going to give you a broader set of candidates. They're not going to probably be the same old recycled ones. And how you set that relationship up. Also, the parameters that Delhara will put in place around how the process actually flows will be important. So from my seat, I'm open to the personnel committee's recommendation because I really do want a recommendation with all of these thoughts baked in. I know we'll need some help. And so that might come in the form of kind of a single source person that can help us with the process. It might come in the form of a firm, but I don't think it'll be the type of firm that you experienced the last time around, probably with a little bit more guidance around the engagement, the parameters of how we engage with that firm, how staff engages with that firm, and what the decisioning process looks like after you've collected all the inputs. How do you actually make the decision, right? And I think that's what nets out to selecting the right candidate. So I hear you for sure. And I'll be continuing to kind of keep abreast of the process and echoing those sentiments if you want to do the process, for sure. Any other trustee comment? Okay, I saw Sharon's hand first, then Chris.
Is
then
anyone
Kathy, then
going to the
Steve.
event at the end of the month in Lansing?
Yes.
Yes,
And so we are registered, right, Kelly?
you should have been.
I don't think I got anything confirming that I was registered though.
You registered yourself, though.
Yeah, we just registered ourselves.
Oh, well, yes, I did then.
Okay.
Never mind. I thought I saw something where you
You
were saying that
registered.
the library was gonna pay the
Yeah.
fee.
You had to invoice, you just,
Oh, yeah, right,
you
yeah.
did pay
invoiced
the
it.
fee,
We
though.
paid the fee, but you guys had to register.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes, so we're registered. Now, I think the question is, does anybody want to carpool? Does anybody want to ride up there together? Those type of things, or are people all wanting to go solo dolo? Interested in carpooling?
I'll
Yeah.
carpool as long as I have to drive.
Okay, all right, that sounds good. So maybe via email, who wants to drive? Anybody got a big vehicle they want to drive?
Sorry, who's all going? So I-
Just the four of us.
Who's going?
Me, you, Stephen, and Ernie.
Okay.
So I can't drive.
I
So,
don't drive an SUV, so.
I don't drive an SUV either, so you don't mind a sedan.
okay, I've got a pretty good sized SUV, so I don't mind driving either.
Okay, so between Renee or I, one of us will drive. All right, thank you for raising that, because I
Keeping gas money.
It's okay.
I'm driving. then. Yes, thank you for bringing that up. Chris?
First of all, I want to apologize for coming in late, and as soon as I say this, I'm gonna have to leave. I emergently have to help my partner Steve with two very elderly dogs. So that's why I was late getting here, and I've gotta go let him out before they pee in my house again.
Okay.
Okay, so
Priority.
that's the thing, but my trustee comment is, what is the appropriate way to follow up with the public comment that was made? I don't know, I'm not sure what the request is, if it's to have, you know, a speaker, at least explore a speaker. And I appreciate it coming to the board, but I'm not sure what the appropriate way to follow up to this request is, other than to look at Kelly. Is there another way to follow up?
Well, I was gonna say, you know, my thought around it would be to look for a recommendation from the staff programming committee.
Okay,
Honestly, to take, you know, the feedback, ingest that and bring back a recommendation. Or at least, I mean, I say recommendation, right? It may not require board approval, right? Because we're not approving
right,
this
right.
thing.
Programs go on without
But
the
to
board,
bring back
right?
for our awareness, kind of the progress, related to these pieces of feedback.
Okay, so just somebody will follow up. Okay, I apologize.
Right. Thank you,
Before you
Chris.
go, Chris,
Yeah.
would you try these chairs out?
Forward to you.
Is there gonna be a chair demo later?
Okay,
Is anyone else?
I think we have Kathy and then we have Stephen.
So two things,
Happy.
yes,
I vote
thank
that
you,
one.
me too. The chairs, one of them, the director of TLM was kind enough to bring the chair on the right.
Are you sure?
Yes, I am. Yeah. He brought that over on his lunch hour for us to try out, because that's what I sit on when I'm at the board meeting at TLM. And it's adjustable, and it's very comfortable. And I went to the place that sells them and sat on them over there too, and like that, I sat in every chair in that place, and that was one that I liked. The other chair we've got from a website. So if you could, before you leave, sit in each chair, decide which one you really like and let me know so we can go forward with purchasing.
I'm like for whatever you like.
Okay.
For this room? Or
Yeah,
this
that's
room?
to replace
This is the most
these
comfortable
chairs.
chair I've ever seen.
Oh.
You
okay.
can have that chair.
So the other.
It's just awkward.
Because the other thing is, on these stacks here, you'll have it. Under web pages viewed, adult, teen, and children's pages, there's a 0. And under,
I don't think that Sarah, she got that, Sarah doesn't have all the stats in yet.
okay, so that's a program and attendance of 0.
Yeah.
And that screws up everything.
Yeah, no, I know. It just, she got that out for you to see. She didn't, Sarah doesn't have the rest of them.
So when she gets the rest of them, I'd like. Okay, thank you. That's all I have to say.
Stephen, turn it over to you.
Here, better really quickly. So I told Maria, I apologize for not following directions at the state of the city. Yeah. I was there the whole time in the VIP area. Right, very nice. They just ushered me there. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know, there. But I will say it did afford me the opportunity to speak with some of the Farmington City Council members and I'm appointed by there and I just be kind of thinking about my participation in this and their relationship. And I kind of wondered in that moment in talking with them, like, and I'm not sure if you all know what I'm doing as your appointee. I wonder what a future opportunity might be for us to have some sort of reporting or dialogue as your appointee, like, hey, here's the stuff I voted on, here's the stuff I fought for or fought against. And so I had spoken with council members Falk and Maria, I'm blanking on Maria's last name, Taylor. And so there was an interest in having us present to Farmington City Council. I hate that like obligate you to another evening thing before you retire, but at least there was an interest.
Schedule.
Yeah, right, like do it on February. But there was at least an interest from some members of the Farmington City Council to have appointees and or staff present to the board about things happening in the library. Of course, they're at an advantage because of Steve, and a lot of the big happenings there are through him, but I think it would be nice as an appointee to let them know, here's the stuff that I, as your appointed official, and am doing on behalf of library of the city. So just an idea, a thought to put out in the atmosphere.
So I'm assuming,
No, I asked to present.
I was gonna say.
And I was told- and I was
This is
told, like-
interesting commentary though.
Like Farmington or Farmington?
Farmington. We have presented to Farmington Hills several times over the past year.
Oh, I
Um,
could present, but I couldn't use a PowerPoint.
But what I would say, Stephen, is I think that's beautiful. And kind of in accordance with my comments earlier, they did issue a proclamation on Monday night. And I think it'd be most appropriate for any of our appointees from Farmington or elsewhere to visit with them, provide an update, and certainly thank them for the proclamation. Yep. All right, Jim.
Finding a new director is not, is going to push me off this board. No, I'm not, I just want to respond because Maria said one thing and I don't, I think it's hugely important, the process that we pick. And I don't have good advice. We did use a library search, a search firm from the library world before and there were it seemed like the right thing to do, but it did cost $30,000. So that was the fee 6 years ago that we were talking about for a search. So keep that in mind as you guys look for better alternatives. The other thing is I am going to speak for myself and say that we did try to create a process where we did listen to staff. So I know we don't normally respond to public comment, but I'm just gonna that line about staff was not listened to. There's no way that I could argue with that. But this is a thing that there's always a gap between, did you listen to me and do what I wanted you to do? Or did you ignore me completely and do what you wanted to do? There's middle ground. There's middle ground. Like we tried to get staff feedback for the last time that we had to select a director. But I'll acknowledge to this board that yes, what the candidate that staff wanted was not the one that the board selected. That doesn't mean that the board did not listen to staff input. Now, staff might not feel that way. And so my comment is, I want to be part of a board that absolutely makes staff feel like they were listened to. That's it. That was a long way to get to that.
Yeah, and I think that's how we all feel. We want people to feel like the process is inclusive. I think the point you make around in these types of processes, right? Everybody's not always going to get their pick. But we want folks to be able to stand back and look at the process and, say, okay, this was a rigorous process with standards that netted a good candidate, even if it's not the one that I wanted. We still want a good candidate, right, at the end of the day. And I think that's our goal. So I appreciate that. Any other trustee comments?
I'll say something really quickly, if that's okay. We talked about the Chamber of Commerce event that happened last week, and Sharon and I were present. Kathy, Ernie, apparently Stephen, and I were present at the State of the Cities event. And it just, even hearing your comment about the city council, being present, it just makes me, one of the things that the personnel committee has talked about is how do we increase engagement between the board and the staff and back and forth? And that extends to the community. And so just being at those events, which I don't often get to get the opportunity to go, but it happened to be a slower week, so I was able to go. And I really do want to encourage all of us to make that part of the commitment, because part of when, as a newer member of the board, I've heard bits and pieces, right, of how in the past, the director hiring or just other things have eroded trust between staff and board and the community and the library. And I think in these small ways of us being present in our community, talking to people and representing the libraries are one of the ways that we can start rebuilding that trust. And I think, Kelly, this is at your helm, a lot of that has happened. And I think we all carry a little bit of that responsibility, right? Even if I wasn't here for whatever happened in the past, it's still my responsibility to build that. And so just my way of saying, I encourage you all to get out there as well. And for the four of us who are from Farmington appointees, as even thinking, so I was like, I'd love to go to the city council next week, as you said, and say thanks, for recognizing the library. But even if we rotated that like once a month, right, that is 3 times a year that we are present at the city council meeting and just saying thanks, or this is what's going on at the library, and just staying at the forefront of their conversation.
Just to add a little something to that, in terms of getting to know the staff better, is I know there's a couple events that the trustees do that we don't do. And they are, like, I think we brought the staff donuts. Well, we did that, but there was nobody involved. It was from the trustees. And then the trustees get their lunch one day, but no trustees go and say, thank you, staff, or whatever. I mean, it says, well, the trustees did this for us, but we didn't do it for them. We didn't participate and share, the thank you or whatever. So I just suggest that when we have those events that say the trustees did this for you, that we actually do it for them, not just give them something.
I like that commentary, Sharon, and I second that motion. Yeah. All right, any further trustee comment?
My chairs before you go. So
Because
they won't be here the next meeting.
That final comment, try to chair, we will consider ourselves adjourned. Thank you very much.